Sarang Shidore, who's a senior research fellow at the Quincy Institute. Many thanks to you, Sarang, for joining in. I'm sure you can hear the audio. It speaks volumes of Prime Minister's popularity within the Indian diaspora, which has sort of witnessed this kind of meteoric rise. Before we delve into topics of foreign policy and geopolitics, let's also take a moment to acknowledge the kind of power soft power has to gain those hard outcomes that the Indian government is trying to, gain as far as, using this as an ice-breaking moment to gain perhaps greater mileage when it comes to strengthening that bilateral relationship between India and the United States is concerned. I want to know from you, Sarang, what has been the sentiment within the Indian American community as far as Prime Minister Modi's state visit is concerned, because remember, he's made those visits in the past as well, but this is his maiden state visit.
Yes, thank you for having me on the show. Well, he's certainly very popular among the Indian American diaspora. I think that has been true for quite some time, and you can see that sentiment expressed. He's also highly resonant in terms of in him and India in Washington in terms of the policy circles, Congress, the White House, and really all facets of U.S. policy-making circles. So it's both the diaspora and the government and associated figures who are looking forward to what comes out of this for India-U.S. relations.
Right, and when we talk about Prime Minister Modi's popularity with the Indian diaspora, this has witnessed a meteoric rise since 2014, and something that has also been capitalized by not just the Biden government, but also in the past, say in 2019, when we witnessed Donald Trump invite Prime Minister Modi to that Howdy Modi event in Houston. We know that 2019 was again a very pivotal, crucial year for the United States. And we are looking at another pivotal year, which is 2023. We all know both the countries are now expected to go to election next year. But having said that, what will this mean for a year that is so critical for the United States, taking into consideration that the Indian American community is a massive voting bloc now?
Indian Americans are running in presidential elections. We have two candidates, both on the Republican Party side, that have Indian origin, and there have been others before, and there will be doubtlessly many more in the future. So the Indian American community is among, if not the most successful immigrant communities in the United States at this point. It is more than 4 million strong. It has done extremely well in terms of education and wealth, and it's translating that into political influence. So all in all, this creates a very different sort of a relationship between the US and India, beyond the strategic imperative, which is what is driving India and the US to converge for 20 years. This is adding a dimension of people-to-people ties, and indeed, Indian Americans who are very much present in the political sphere of the United States, in the policy-making sphere, in the technocratic sphere, in the corporate sphere, and so forth.
In fact, as we speak, Sarang, we are also learning that Prime Minister Modi will be attending a very important event, which is going to be called Skilling for the Future. This event, of course, is going to focus on capacity building, on building better skills for a labor force that is very young and also occupied by the Indian Americans in a sizable population as far as the labor force in the United States is concerned. How much rests upon this event for the Indian American community, not just in the United States, and also for those Indians who are looking forward to going to the US? Remember, there's also a big hurdle as far as the H-1B visa issue is concerned.
So I'm told that there will be progress on the visa issue. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days. But that's something I think the US side has taken up. And we know the challenges there, and there's a sentiment at the moment in the US that is not very favorable to immigration. But nevertheless, the point being made by many Indians and those who understand, the dynamics of this, is that this really benefits both sides. That you have sort of skills that the U.S. needs for its own growth in the future. It has its own here in the U.S. We have our own challenges, and we do need to up the game, if you will, in terms of technology, education, skilling. And of course, India has that challenge as well, has many skilled service employees that can be absorbed, but can also work here. So together, this model is not new, but the point is to continue it, and it really is a win-win. So having the domestic sensitivities have to be taken into account. There's no question. India does that on trade. So the US naturally will do it on immigration, and that has to be expected. But even if you account for that, if you do the Venn diagram, there is enough there in common that both countries can benefit from.
Right, and when you talk about that mutual benefit, and there's also the labor force, and that is also when we talk about skilling for the future, we're looking at a time where the inroads have already been made by artificial intelligence. Could this also pose a threat to the existing labor force in both the markets, whether it is India or the United States?
Yeah, so I think that's what I was referring to, that there are sensitivities on immigration that are politically the reality, and those have to be taken into account. The United States government here is answerable to its own people, as it should be, and likewise on the Indian side. So, but that doesn't mean that there cannot be a commonality. So one has to find that sweet spot in the middle that benefits both sides and yet preserves the concerns that each domestic constituencies on each side might have. And I think the two sides are quite committed to working out progress in that direction. There are a number of areas in which we're expecting announcements. This is hopefully one of them.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the number of areas, let me also now bring in that significant role that defense and technology will be playing, especially critical emerging technology will be playing when both the leaders meet at the table. Do take us through what we can expect in terms of those, in terms of defense cooperation or even technology, because remember, there's been an unprecedented level of engagement between both the countries. We've seen the defense secretary make a visit. We've seen Antony Blinken also make a visit. We've seen the NSAs of both the countries interact. So there's a lot being offered, and many foreign policy experts are in fact calling this as an unprecedented level of engagement, something that has not been witnessed in the past. Will this be able to sort of deepen that much needed boost to defense and tech ties?
That's been a tough issue over the years because India really wants to move up the technology chain, and the US has certain cutting edge technologies to share. So the key issue there is not selling technology as much as co-production, co-development, hopefully as well. And it's been a long road, but I think we are seeing progress. So what is expected, and we again have to see what happens, but what we can hope for is that there will be an aircraft engine deal that involves manufacturing on the Indian side, not just selling an engine that's just shipped across, but actually it's at least partly manufactured in India. And that all the stage seems to be pretty set for that. All the indications are that this is going forward. And then there's also the sale of the drones, the armed drones, which is more of a direct sale. But that is all about India's security needs and trying to match it with what the US has to offer. So on technology, there's also another frontier where cooperation is more is expected, more news is expected, and that potentially could be space.
Sarang, when you say
we
that,
have to see how.
Right. When